Did you know that 1 in 4 people report experiencing unexplained phenomena in their own homes? Have you ever felt like you weren't alone in your house, even when you knew you were? Tonight, I'm going to tell you about something that happened to a woman named Rebecca Chen, something that will make you question everything you think you know about the safety of your own 4 walls. Welcome back to my channel, where we explore the darkest corners of human experience. I'm your host, and tonight we're diving into one of the most terrifying true stories I've ever encountered. For centuries, humans have gathered around fires to share scary stories. There's something primal about fear. It connects us to our most basic survival instincts. But what happens when a scary story isn't just fiction? What happens when the terror follows you home? The story I'm about to share with you isn't from some dusty folklore collection or Hollywood screenplay. This happened to a real person, in a real house, just 18 months ago. Rebecca Chen was a 34-year-old software engineer living alone in Portland, Oregon. She was rational, logical, skeptical of anything supernatural. But over the course of 3 weeks, something invaded her life that would shatter everything she believed about reality. By the end of those 3 weeks, Rebecca had abandoned her home, her job, and moved across the country. She's never spoken publicly about what happened. Until now. What you're about to hear will change how you feel about being alone in your own home. It started small, the way these things always do. Rebecca had just moved into a beautiful Victorian house she'd been renting in Portland's Hawthorne district. The house was over 100 years old, with original hardwood floors, high ceilings, and those charming quirks that come with historic homes. At first, the sound seemed normal. Old houses settle, pipes creak, wood expands and contracts. But Rebecca began to notice patterns. Every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., she would hear footsteps above her bedroom. Slow, deliberate steps that would pace back and forth for exactly 7 minutes, then stop. The rational part of her mind had explanations. Mice in the walls, the house settling, maybe even the upstairs neighbor. Except there was no upstairs neighbor. The attic had been sealed off decades ago with no access from inside the house. Then came the cold spots. Rebecca would be working at her computer and suddenly feel like she'd stepped into a freezer. The temperature would drop so dramatically that she could see her breath, but only in specific areas of the house. The living room corner by the fireplace, the hallway outside her bedroom, the kitchen, right in front of the basement door. But here's what really started to terrify Rebecca. The feeling of being watched. You know that sensation? When every instinct in your body screams that someone is staring at you? She felt it constantly. During the day, during the night, even when she was in the shower. The feeling was so intense that she started leaving lights on 24/7, installed security cameras throughout the house, and even had friends come stay over. The cameras showed nothing. Her friends heard nothing unusual. But Rebecca knew something was fundamentally wrong with that house. By the end of the first week, the phenomena had escalated beyond simple noises and cold spots. Rebecca started finding things moved in her house. Small things at first. Her coffee mug would be in the sink when she distinctly remembered leaving it on the counter. Books would be pulled slightly out from the shelf. Her bedroom door, which she always kept closed, would be standing wide open in the morning. She installed motion sensor cameras, thinking maybe she was sleepwalking or simply forgetting things due to stress. But the cameras revealed something far more disturbing. The objects were moving when she wasn't even home. The footage showed her coffee mug sliding across the counter by itself at 2:30 p.m. while she was at work. A book fell from the shelf in her living room while she was grocery shopping. But the most unsettling footage was from her bedroom camera. It showed her bedroom door slowly creaking open at 4:15 a.m., then closing again exactly 3 minutes later. The door handle turned completely, as if someone was carefully, quietly opening it. Rebecca confronted her landlord, demanding to know the history of the house. What she learned chilled her to the bone. The house had been the site of a murder-suicide in 1987. A man named David Walsh had killed his wife in the kitchen, then hanged himself in the attic. The attic that was now sealed off. The attic directly above Rebecca's bedroom. The second week brought something Rebecca wasn't prepared for. Direct interaction. It started with writing. She would come home to find messages written in the condensation on her bathroom mirror. At first, they were single words: leave, go, out. Rebecca documented everything, taking photos, recording videos. She was determined to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was a prank, maybe someone had broken in. She changed all the locks, installed additional security measures, even had the house tested for gas leaks that might cause hallucinations. But the messages became more personal, more threatening. I know you're alone, you don't belong here. And then, the one that made her blood run cold. Sarah screamed too. Sarah was David Walsh's wife, the woman who had been murdered in that house 36 years ago. That night, Rebecca decided to sleep in her car. But as she was packing a bag, something happened that she'll never forget. She was in her bedroom throwing clothes into a suitcase when she heard breathing behind her. Not her own breathing, someone else's, slow, labored like someone struggling to breathe. She spun around. The room was empty, but in the mirror on her dresser she saw something that made her legs give out. Standing directly behind her was the silhouette of a man. She could see his reflection, but when she turned around, nothing was there. The reflection raised its hand and pointed at her. Then, in a voice like grinding glass, it whispered her name. Rebecca. Week 3. The final confrontation. 3 minutes. Rebecca didn't sleep that night. She sat in her car in the driveway, engine running, ready to flee. But something kept her there. Maybe curiosity, maybe stubbornness, maybe the part of her that needed to understand what was happening. At sunrise, she went back inside to gather her essential belongings. The house felt different, heavier, like the air itself was thick with malevolence. Every step she took echoed strangely, as if the house was much larger than it actually was. She was packing her laptop when she heard it. Piano music coming from downstairs. Slow, melancholy notes that seemed to drift up through the floorboards. But Rebecca knew there was no piano in the house. Against every instinct, she followed. The sound downstairs. The music was coming from the sealed basement door. The door she'd never been able to open because the landlord said it was permanently locked for safety reasons. As she approached the door, the music stopped. In the sudden silence, she could hear something else. Scratching, like fingernails on wood, coming from behind the door. Then, clear as day, she heard a voice. A woman's voice, weak and desperate. Help me, he's coming back. He always comes back at night. Rebecca pressed her ear to the door. Sarah? Sarah, is that you? The scratching intensified. He killed me here. In the basement. But I didn't cross over. I've been trapped here for 36 years. And now he's angry that you're here. He doesn't want witnesses. That's when Rebecca heard the footsteps above. The same 3:17 a.m. footsteps, but it was broad daylight. Heavy boots pacing back and forth, getting faster, more agitated. What happened next is the reason Rebecca can never sleep through the night again. The reason she moved 3,000 miles away and still checks her locks 3 times before bed. The footsteps stopped. The house fell completely silent, no creaking, no settling, not even the hum of the refrigerator. It was as if the entire house was holding its breath. Then, from directly behind her came that grinding glass voice. You shouldn't have listened to her. Rebecca spun around to see the full manifestation of David Walsh. Not a shadow, not a reflection, but a complete apparition. He was exactly as he'd been described in the police reports. Tall, gaunt, with wild eyes and hands stained dark with what could only be blood. But the most terrifying part wasn't his appearance. It was his smile. He was smiling at her like she was an old friend, like he'd been waiting for her. Sarah told you the truth, he said, his voice echoing strangely in the small hallway. I did kill her, right down there in the basement, and I've been keeping her company ever since, but now I have a problem, Rebecca. You know too much. He took a step toward her, and Rebecca felt cold unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Not just physical cold, but the absence of warmth, of life, of hope. You have 2 choices, David continued. You can leave and never speak of this, never tell anyone what you've heard. Or you can join Sarah in the basement. She gets lonely. Rebecca ran. She didn't pack, didn't grab her keys. Didn't even close the door behind her. She ran barefoot, down the street screaming for help. When the police arrived, they found the house empty, but the basement door, the door that had been sealed for decades, was standing wide open. In the basement, they found Sarah Walsh's remains, exactly where David had left them 36 years ago. Rebecca kept her promise. She never spoke publicly about what happened in that house until she agreed to share her story for this video. She moved to Florida, changed her career, even changed her name. But she says David Walsh visits her dreams, sometimes reminding her of their agreement. The house on Hawthorne still stands empty. It's been on the market for 18 months, but every potential tenant or buyer leaves within minutes of stepping inside. The real estate agent stopped showing it after the third person ran out screaming. Rebecca's story reminds us that some places hold on to their darkness. Some events are so traumatic that they echo through time, trapping both the living and the dead in endless cycles of fear and pain. The question isn't whether you believe in ghosts. It's whether you're prepared for the possibility that death might not be the end of human consciousness, human anger, or human revenge. If you've experienced something unexplained in your own home, share your story in the comments below, but maybe wait until daylight to do it. Hit that subscribe button for more terrifying true stories and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Before you go to sleep tonight, maybe check your locks one more time. And if you hear footsteps when you know you're alone, well, maybe you're not as alone as you think. Sweet dreams.